It is, and after 25 years in the making, a replica World War One plane has finally taken off. A group of volunteers in East Lothian started the project back in 2000, meeting up weekly to work on the Sopwith Strutter, which they've nicknamed Sophie. Take a listen to her taking off. What a beautiful noise. Mike Harper is the chairman of the Aviation Preservation Society of Scotland, which made the replica. Mike, hello.
Hi, hello there.
Was that a real heart-in-mouth moment on the
certainly
first
was.
takeoff?
Yes, it was. And we were absolutely delighted with the result.
Where did the idea come about for this, to actually say, OK, let's do this, let's do it by hand? I mean, I guess you knew it was going to take you a long time, but 25 years.
Yeah, you're right. The guys had fantastic vision, and there were a number of the guys who didn't actually make it to see the plane fly, but they did start the project. The idea was to build an aircraft in the National Museum of Flight in East Lothian to fly. In other words, we didn't want an aircraft just to display. The idea was to make it fly. And to make it fly, you have to go through a very, very strict procedure. Everything's checked and double-checked, and that's why it's taken so long, basically.
And, of course, you're obviously building it to the spec that it had in 1916, which would be very, very different to today. So did you have to compromise? How did you source what you needed?
The majority of the parts were hand-built, handmade. We built the plane from the original plans of the Sopwith Strutter. There were a couple of departures. It's got a modern engine on it, it's got modern wheels on it, and it has a modern covering on it. In other words, it's not covered with Irish linen like they used to be. It's a modern, stronger material that we use now. But apart from that, everything on that aircraft has been built to the plans, and it has to be built to the plans because these were approved plans. And as Tim said, if it flew then, it'll fly now.
Let's bring in Tim then. Tim Rayner, inspector and pilot. Tim, was that you behind the controls on the first flight?
Yes, it was indeed.
Wow. What did it feel like?
Well, I'm used to flying what we call modern light aeroplanes. Having said that, most of them were designed and built in the 50s and the 60s, but that's the sort of aeroplanes that most private pilots can afford to buy these days. And so I'm sort of used to flying those sorts of aeroplanes. I've learnt to fly in a Tiger Moth, which was a little bit after the Sopwith Strutter in years, in 1933. So I was expecting it to fly something like a Tiger Moth. And
did it?
It's better than the Tiger Moth, in my opinion, my humble opinion. I found it easier to fly than the Tiger Moth. The Tiger Moth made very good pilots out of students, so it did its job very well. The Strutter was, in its role, required perhaps a little less skill, but it's still demanding to fly. It's not something that you can just jump in if you're a modern pilot and just, push the throttle to the firewall and away you go.
Absolutely. A crude analogy would be modern day cars. I mean, if you go back and try and drive a car that doesn't have power steering or any of the assistance that we're used to, it's a wholly different experience, isn't it?
It is, and that's probably a very good analogy, actually, the power steering, because this aeroplane, the controls are not harmonised like modern designs, and so yes, you've got to have Weetabix for your breakfast or steak for lunch if you want to fly this aeroplane around. Yes, it is quite a different sort of aeroplane to fly, but that's fine. I was expecting that, so and my experience in flying other aircraft is such that I didn't find it I found it a challenge, but I didn't find it difficult.
Let's bring Mike back in. We don't have much time left, Mike, but this was a plane that was involved in protecting the 4th coastline in World War One. It was also the first British 2-seater fighter plane to have a machine gun synchronised with its propeller. Question: Do you have the 2-seater up there? And what about the machine gun? Or did you sort of duck out of that this time round?
Well, she has a machine gun, but she's fake, obviously. We wouldn't want to put a real one on there. But a lot of firsts with this aircraft, especially it was the very first aircraft to land on what is now known as an aircraft carrier. So, believe it or not, we invented the aircraft carrier in Scotland. It was built in Scotland from a half-built Italian liner, believe it or not. They put a flat deck on the top of it, brought it round to the Forth and landed a plane on it. And that's the very start of the aircraft carriers.
We've all got to come up to the Aviation Preservation Society of Scotland because there is so much more. You've just dropped that one in at the end. It's absolutely fascinating. We can go on the BBC News website to take a look at this flight. It's amazing. Mike Harper and Tim Rayner, thank you so much for joining us.
The Voice of the UK.